Hi, and welcome back to Horror Recapped. In today's recap, we will be examining the 2007 horror film titled Vacancy. We begin the film with a man named David, who was driving down a winding highway in the middle of nowhere, sleeping peacefully in the passenger seat as Amy. David swerves to miss a raccoon, waking up Amy, and soon after, they are both unhappy with each other. Amy asks why they aren't on the interstate anymore, and David explains that there was a backup. It's quite obvious they are lost. David thinks that he hears something wrong with the engine, but there's nowhere for them to stop for now. After some more unpleasant conversation, they decide to sit in silence for a while instead of suffering through each other's company. After some more driving, David tries to guess where they are on the map, but the car starts making noises again. Soon, they come to a lone gas station, and they pull in to look at the map a little closer. They are startled by a man that tells them that he was about to pull out when he saw them arrive. After telling him where they are trying to get to, he explains that they are going in the complete opposite direction. He offers to take a look at their engine to try and make sure that they will be able to get back to where they need to be at least. After a quick look, he tells them that they should be able to get to town at least. He tips them off to a special route to get back to the interstate, and after David tips the man, he gives them a sparkler to hold out the window as they drive. Amy enjoys the simple sparkler, but David makes a comment that causes her to throw it out the window. A little further down the road, the car comes to a complete stop as it breaks down. David throws on the flashers and goes to look under the hood. After weighing their options, they decide that the best option is for them to walk a mile back to the gas station. After walking a short distance, David tries to talk to Amy, and it is revealed that they have had a child pass away and are handling it differently. Once back at the gas station, they find that it is closed, so they head next door to the motel. When they go inside the office, they hear a woman screaming from the back room. David decides to ring the bell to get service, and Mason appears. He assures them that it is just a movie that he was watching, and after turning it off, he comes back and listens to David talk about their broken down car. He tells them that the next closest garage is 12 miles away, so they decide they have no other choice but to stay there for the night. After they get to the room, Amy goes to drink some water to take her antidepressants, but dirt water is all that comes out of the pipes. The more they check out the room, the worse it seems to be. Once they sit down, we find that they are about to go through a divorce, but they haven't told anyone yet. For a second, it almost seems like they are sad to let go of each other, but that quickly goes away when the phone rings. Amy answers the phone, but no one answers. Then, someone bangs on the door, but when David goes to check it out, no one is there. Then, the phone rings again, but this time, David answers. Finally, knocking comes from the front door and the one that leads to the next room. When David opens his door to the next room, and once again, no one is there. While banging still continues, David calls out to whoever is toying with them. As the banging intensifies, they lock the front door with the latch. David starts to lose his temper, and he gets ready to go outside. When Amy goes to use the phone, she finds out that the phone doesn't have a dial tone anymore. David goes to the next room over and tries to get them to answer, but when no answer comes, he heads for the office. After Mason comes out to see what's wrong, he seems confused because David and Amy are the only guests of the motel. He tries to act like it might just be a school kid or a drifter, but he still grabs a revolver before he goes to deal with the problem. When David gets back to the room, Amy tries to talk him into going back to the car to wait the night there, but he's not about to leave. In an attempt to calm down, David tries to watch TV, but no channels seem to work, so he puts in one of the tapes that sits on top of the TV. What plays seems to be a torture horror movie, but he ignores it and tries another one. After watching the second one, he notices that it is actually the same room that they are staying in. He watches as two girls are brutally murdered. Then he looks around for where there might be some cameras. Eventually, Amy notices the same thing. David finds cameras inside the vents that are watching them. Soon, the power cuts out, and they hear some more banging coming from the door. As the banging intensifies, the power flickers on and off, and we see that someone is in the room with them. They try to call the police on their cell phone, but they can't get a signal. Now that they know that whoever is there knows they've watched the tape, they quickly try to find another way out, but they end up finding an apple that came from their car in the bathroom. They decide to take their chances, running out of the front door. But as they try to run for the road, they see masked men appear out of the darkness, causing them to run back to the room. Amy drops her phone in the parking lot, but they lock the door just in time. After trying to come up with a plan, David decides to have Amy distract them at the back window while he goes to use the payphone. David makes it to the booth and calls 911. After telling the operator that they're trapped in the motel, the operator tells him that he shouldn't be wandering in the dark by himself. As a car comes careening towards the phone booth, he jumps out in time to run for the room, and when he gets back, Amy locks the door behind him. David decides that their best bet is to hold out until morning, and he breaks the bathroom mirror so they have a weapon. They pick a corner in the room and sit down to keep watch, but we see that they are the ones being watched instead. Mason keeps an eye on all of the monitors from his back room. Back in the room, Amy ends up falling asleep, but when she wakes up, she sees that David is trying to find a mistake in the previous tapes. He learns that a man pops up from the bathroom in each tape, so there must be a secret entrance from there. David ends up finding a secret hatch in the bathroom floor, but when he opens it, Amy tells him that someone has pulled up outside. When they check, it turns out to be a trucker, and when he steps out of the truck, they try to flag him down from their window. Eventually, he starts to come their way, but masked men show up behind him. Soon, Mason shows up and gives him a box of tapes, and it becomes clear that he is one of them. David and Amy decide to try the secret hatch, and they grab a flashlight and hop in. After they crawl for a while, Amy starts to feel claustrophobic, but David pushes her to keep going. Eventually, they come to a whole nest of rats, and he warns Amy to keep quiet. When they reach the end, they open another hatch that leads into Mason's office. We learn that he has shelves upon shelves of tapes of victims. Next, the couple checks around to see if there is something they can use against the masked man. Eventually, Amy finds a phone, and she calls the real 911. Just then, Mason comes in with a mechanic and searches for them. Mason hears the 911 operator on the phone, and he knows that they are running out of time now. He sends the mechanic into the tunnel to get them, and he heads outside to warn the others that they are in the tunnel, with the mechanic behind them and another man coming from the other way. They go through another hatch that leads them to the gas station counter. David blocks the hatch with a heavy counter, and Amy begins to panic. At first, David snaps at her, but he quickly holds her and apologizes for everything. Amy takes this time to apologize for their relationship and their son dying. Soon, they hear a police officer pull up, but David tries to rationalize whether he's one of them or not. Mason walks the officer around, but once the officer is left alone in a room, he notices the tape that shows the murder that happened in the room. Meanwhile, David and Amy are struggling to keep one of the men locked in the tunnel below. When Amy sees that the cop is about to leave, she and David rush for the patrol car, but someone has already cut cables under the hood. Suddenly, one of the men comes from up behind the cop and stabs him to death. David and Amy run and barricade themselves inside of one of the rooms, but their pursuers are close on their heels. David hides Amy in the attic of one of the rooms, and he gets ready to make a break for the office to get a gun. Once he opens the door, one of the men stabs him immediately. David tries to crawl for a second, but Mason shows up with a camcorder to record him dying. When they head in the room, they see the decoy evidence left to make them believe she made it out of the bathroom window, but Mason thinks twice about it before walking out. Once Mason leaves, Amy continues hiding until morning comes. When she wakes up to see the sun has come up, she makes her way out of the attic. As she crawls towards David's dead body, a masked man comes out of the bathroom and chases her. Amy sprints for her car, but as she starts it, a man breaks through the sunroof. Amy crashes through the motel wall and kills two of the men before running away from Mason. She runs into the front office and grabs a hammer as Mason comes into the lobby. As she's attempting to grab a gun, Mason starts to strangle her with a cord. Mason grabs his camera and records her as he taunts her. In a last burst of energy, Amy kicks him and makes her way into the lobby, where she grabs the gun and shoots him to death. Amy runs outside to say her goodbyes to David, but it turns out that he's strong-willed and has been holding on to his last thread of life. They embrace each other and wait for the police, as their nightmare stay has come to an end. The thrill of vacancy is the fact that all of this could happen in real life, and for all anyone knows, it might be. With phenomenal acting and story, this is an absolute win of a thrilling horror movie. We hope you've enjoyed this recap. If so, please don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel with notifications turned on. That way, you won't miss a single video. Thanks for watching.